Social media is an inherently bad idea. Down to its core, the root concept of it is fundamentally flawed and broken. You and me and everyone else watching has at least some issues with social media, be it privacy or censorship or simply how various people act on social media. We have issues with them. But at its core, it is unfixable. Those issues we have, even if we can put little band-aids on some of them, cannot be fixed to make social media a good thing. I've talked about some of these topics in the past. I've touched on them. And the more I've talked about them, the more I've talked to other people about them and watched the way that I use social media and the way that others use social media, it has become increasingly clear that there is no way to fix it. I'm going to prove it to you. Let's start here. Computer experiences, the way we use our computers, are typically designed, at least in some way, around something that happens in the real physical world. When we sit down at our computer, we use a desktop, which was literally originally designed to replicate a top of your desk, an actual physical desktop. Files were represented files that you'd put in a filing cabinet. That is how they were named. That is what they were designed after to recreate. Same with folders, directories of files, etc. These are all things that were created to replicate something in real world space. It's taking something that exists in the real world and computerizing it, if you will, making it so that it is not only accessible and easy to learn as you sit down at your computer, but also so that it allows you to extend upon the things that you are already doing in the real world in a digital way and hopefully make them better by proxy. However, when you look at social media, it becomes very difficult to pin down exactly what it is in the real world. Walk with me through this here. For example, some people have said social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc., is a lot like a public square or a town hall meeting, if you will. Somewhere where people can say whatever they want, where they can wander around and talk to people, right? And at first glance, that kind of holds true. Almost, except with social media, you are also allowing people to converse with you when you're not in that town square. So you're allowing someone who's coming to your town square. Let's say you're the center of your town. There's a nice little square with a park and everyone can congregate there and talk, stand on soapboxes and yell about things, right? That's great. Well, now you're at home or you're in the coffee shop down the street. Social media is like allowing someone to go to that town square, yell something about you, and it yells and echoes through the house that you're in, through the coffee shop that you're in. They are instantly transported to your location to scream at you. So it's not like a town square. Also, there are companies that censor it. Unlike a town square, though I guess you could make the argument that town squares are somewhat censored. If you get in there and you start screaming profanities, the police might come by and say, hey, get out of here, you bum. But realistically, it's not like a town square. Not like a town square at all, because it's with you wherever you go. Therefore, completely nullifying the town square analogy. It doesn't work. Is it like a party line? Now, so those of you who are a lot younger may not remember party lines. I mean, heck, they were big mostly before I was even born. But party lines were a telephone line, an old-fashioned, plain old telephone line that you pick up and you have a party line where multiple people can be connected all at once and you can talk to each other, right? Except that doesn't really work either, because party lines only have a couple of people on them, and usually, you can kind of know who's going to be there, and it's not, even as chaotic as party lines could get, it's not the sheer utter pandemonium of social media, and you can hang up and walk away from a party line, and then you're not involved or ever have to see or hear whatever happened on that party line. So it's not like a telephone party line. It's kind of, in a way, like inviting someone over to your house, where except people can come into your house in this scenario without even being invited. Vampires are not allowed to enter your home unless they're invited in, according to the lore. And yet, these vampires on social media, the people who say horrible things to you and me and everyone else, can literally just walk through our front door, sit down on our kitchen counter and take a poop in our sink, and then start screaming at us whenever they want, and we can't stop them. We can block their accounts, but they can just create new ones and come right back in the house. And we have absolutely no recourse against it whatsoever. So it's not really like inviting people into your home. The really horrible part about social media is it is literally the worst of all of these things times like a bazillion. People can come in your home whenever you want. They can enter social media whenever they want. At a town hall, anyone gets to scream whatever craziness they want at you all the time when you're there. At social media, it's 24/7 and it never ends. It's not like anything in the real world. It is something fundamentally different. Now, fundamentally different does not necessarily mean it's bad, right? Coming up with some new idea can be an incredible thing. You can come up with something new that is wonderful. That happens. That happens. But in this case, it just simply isn't the truth. So it's not really like anything real. It's not like a cable news broadcast. It's not like a party line. It's not like having a pen pal. It's not like getting up on stage and speaking to an audience. It's not like any of those things. It has little nuggets of similarities to some real world things. But even then, it's a massive stretch. The problem here is that humans were not designed to talk to this many people at once. We've never done this before. As a species, as a biological entity, we have never sat down and had conversations with thousands upon millions of people at the same time. Never done it before, and our brains react badly to it. Very, very, very badly. And whether it's good or bad, for the first time ever, someone who has little to no social skills, who is angry, who is vulgar, who is downright violent, and might have the most vile, awful ideas in humanity that no one likes, has the opportunity to get their stuff from their brain in front of you, whether you want it to be there or not. That's a problem. And at least I see it as a problem. But the real root of it is that we were not built to talk to this many people at once. I've seen studies done where they talk about, like how many people a person can maintain an ongoing meaningful relationship, whether it's, 10 people or 20 people or however many people. And I think that's probably reasonably true. I have a large family, a large extended family. Do I have constant, ongoing, meaningful conversations with all of them? No, there's no way I could pull that off. There's just simply too many cousins and second cousins and 15th cousins 3 times removed to possibly have a meaningful relationship and conversations with all of them. It's not doable. And that's my family. Those are people that I'm related to and I like. Hop on Twitter. There's 15,000 or so people that follow me on Twitter. It's impossible for me to have a meaningful conversation or relationship with all of them. Totally impossible. And the more of them there are, the harder and harder it gets. To make this all worse, we've done studies, and by we, I mean the world, humanity has done studies. Many different universities and individuals and think tanks have done studies, and they've shown time and time again that the more time you spend on social media, the less happy you are. And that goes true for a small amount of time on social media. You could say, well, I want to spend a little time on social media. There's no uptick. Like social media, like I just start using it, so I'm tons happier now, and then I use it too much, so I get sad. Nope. You just start using it, and here it comes. I'm using it here, and I'm getting a little bit sadder. You just get a little bit sadder the more you use social media. Studies keep proving that over and over again. It's an almost undeniable fact at this point that it makes us less happy. That doesn't mean there's not good qualities around social media. That doesn't mean that there's not some good that can be inked out of it. However, it does make us less happy, which makes you wonder, why on this green earth are we still using it if it does make us less happy? By and large, it might make a few of you happy, and it might make some people happy for a minute, but overall, people report that their life has less happiness, has less quality to it the more they use social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatnot. Most of these studies tend to be focused around both Twitter and Facebook because they're the kings, but I assume, and this is an assumption, that those studies hold true for other social media as well, even though those studies are very focused on both Facebook and Twitter. And even if they did make us happy, they do make us less productive, at least for the most part. Now, if you're spending time on social media and Facebook, you're not doing something else, right? And if you look back over your social media timeline, like let's say you hop onto Twitter, hop onto Facebook and look over, spend a time to reread over everything you've read, everything you've liked and plussed and hearted and replied to and shared and whatnot. Reread over all of it. And then ask yourself, was that a good use of my time? Was that valuable? Is my life now significantly better? Did I make other people's lives wonderful because I spent that time doing that? Am I now better at my job or taking care of my kids or putting food on my table? Is any of that improved now? Now, there are going to be scenarios where the answer is, yeah, that actually did make me better at my job. Now, like me, for instance, right? Part of my job is to tell people about things I do. If I can't actively do that, then that does make me less effective at my job. So having social media does provide me with at least a small amount of actual productivity boost, but it is a fairly small amount. In fact, and I've been measuring this over time, if I release a show, right? So I'll release a couple of new shows every week, put out a few new articles throughout the month. If I share them around on social media, I tell people about them, I see a boost. Boop. And that's good. I like seeing those boosts. The more numbers, the more income I have, the more cheddar I got, the more food I can put on the table for me and my family, right? Good thing. However, when I compare that to what happens if people simply share it around, not even on social media, sometimes we're talking shared around via email or instant messaging or forums or all sorts of different places, that's a bigger boost, which means the majority, and this is really true, the majority of my growth in terms of numbers of people watching my shows happens not through my usage of social media. I stopped using social media for a full month earlier this year. I saw zero decline in the number of people that watched my show. Zero. In fact, things grew at a pretty steady rate to what they were doing before. It's true. So time spent versus productivity is something really worth looking at, especially considering it makes you less happy to start with. Because if it made you super happy, well, okay, I could see that. You could trade off a little productivity for a little happiness. I'm on board with that. It's so bad. It's so bad that executives and former executives especially who are free to speak out of social media companies don't let their families use social media. Former executives from Facebook have been outspoken about how they will not let their families, especially their children, even the ones that are teenagers and young adults, use Facebook. They tell people don't use Facebook. And it's not because, Facebook's some evil company. It's because the companies themselves, and the executives have verified this, the companies themselves, seriously, look this one up. Don't take my word for it, right? Don't take my word for it. Just Google this. Facebook executive doesn't let family use Facebook. Google that and you'll go down a rabbit hole of executives and high-ranking officials at Facebook and Twitter and other companies who have left the companies and talked about the studies they've done that showed how bad it is. And those are studies they've done and not necessarily made public. They don't let themselves or their families use the thing that they built because it's bad for you. It's bad for me. It's bad for them. That's something really worth pondering about. And I've brought this point up before, but I'm bringing it up again because I don't seem to have let this whole concept sunk into my thick skull because I'm still on Twitter. I still am using it because apparently I'm ridiculous. The other fundamental problem here is that in social media, success is failure. It leads to failure. The more successful you are on social media, the worse all of those things get. This is absolutely fundamentally true. It is true in multiple ways, but the one worst way is that the more popular you are, the harder it is to have any meaningful connection, conversation, interaction with any other human being. I'm not the most popular person on Twitter. Not by a long shot. I'm I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the stack, right? I got 15,000 or so Twitter followers. Some of them amazing people. Some of them I have gotten to know outside of the social media sphere, or I've had little connections on social media, and they seem like really great people. However, it's impossible to have a meaningful conversation with another human being or a small group of other human beings in a giant cacophony of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people being angry and hateful all the time. It's impossible. For instance, go on social media and try to have a political conversation. How will it go? We all know it's going to go bad. And it's not just because, let's say you're having a chat with two of your good friends. Hey, at good friend 1 and at good friend 2, how about this political thing, huh? Crazy. And they start replying, and they're like, yeah, that's nutty, man. Or, geez, I'm not really sure how I think about it. And you guys might be having a great, cordial, friendly chat amongst friends. And in comes at crazy hater number 47. I hate you all. You're all Nazis. And then it goes out from there, and then it gets reshared, and then this other person grabs it, and then it becomes a giant list of people who are just screaming at each other. Or coming into the conversation, not reading all of it, and having a completely different conversation and derailing it. It's impossible to have a meaningful, productive, good conversation that's long form like that in that environment. It can happen. It can happen that you can have little one-offs here and there. You can have little chats. Earlier today, I was on Twitter having some server issues, right? So I asked questions like, who do people recommend? And I got a few recommendations. For those sorts of things, it works okay, right? For those sorts of things, it does. It doesn't necessarily work any better than instant messaging or email or old style, message boards and forums, but it works just fine. For anything more meaningful, for anything deeper, it simply doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And it's not just this one example. The larger you get on social media, the more of a target you become. And this is absolutely the truth. So therefore, success leads to people hating you. Now, the bigger you get, the more successful you get, the more of a target you become is true in the whole world. This is one of the few ways where I can point at social media and say this mimics reality. However, social media empowers people who don't know you, who would never have access to you otherwise, to push their way through your front door and poop in your sink and scream at you 24/7 and try and invite all their friends who like pooping in sinks and screaming at people to come on over to your house and have that party. And the more successful you get, the more of that there is. If you go to any big celebrity or big politician or big anyone and look at their posts, they could post something. I saw something the other day that just made my mind melt. I looked at the post from a popular politician, right? Won't say who it is, because honestly, this experiment holds true for any politician, any political party, any celebrity, anything. They posted something that was nice. It was a sweet thought about a person, right? There was no politics involved. It was not a political person. It was just a sweet thought about a person. It was like, oh, it was someone was hurting and they expressed some sympathy to that person. That's really nice. So I clicked on it and I saw there was 1,000 messages, a bunch of comments to it. I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, that's so many people hopping on board to express some kindness towards a person. How wonderful is that? Of course, 99% of it wasn't that. It was hijacking whatever was posted in order to yell and scream and name call and just be vile and awful towards the person who posted it. And talk about other topics ways they don't like that person. What a horrible thing to do to another human being. And it happens constantly. It is just this constant onslaught of hate and vileness. And it affects us. It affects us in a deep down way. It doesn't make you feel good. I mean, really, can any of us say, man, when I read all that hate, I sure do feel at peace and happy? No, we don't. And the problem is multiple fold. One of them is that anonymity on social media is a bad thing. Usually. Now, I want to be very clear about this. There are cases where being able to be anonymous is productive and helpful and potentially helping in your own personal and your own family's safety. There are situations where being able to be anonymous is a really positive thing. That said, the vast majority of the time, most people really don't need to be anonymous. And the only reason they need to be anonymous is that they're being mean to other people. And they don't want to deal with the repercussions of that. That's just the truth. It just is. I know some people are going to be upset with me that I'm saying that, but it's kind of true. People who can hide, people who want to be hiding, usually don't have nice things to say, right? Now, sometimes, again, there's a good reason to hide. Maybe your government's persecuting you. Maybe you're a whistleblower for a company that you feel like you have some really important information needs to get out there, and people need to know about this information about whatever. And being anonymous allows you to publish that information. I understand that. I totally do. I totally get it. But for most of us, myself included, being anonymous wouldn't get me anything. And it's not even just anonymous. It's being semi-anonymous. It's being able to just live behind a handle or a username, even if a consistent one that's not your real name. Or some people just live behind the screen and it creates a barrier. And they use their real name. They use their real picture. But because they're behind the screen, they don't feel the need to act like a human being. To not act like they're sitting right across from another person. When you're sitting right in front of a person, it's much harder to just start screaming profanities at them. At least most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. So being anonymous on the internet in the various shades of gray of anonymity and detachedness is a bad thing. At least it's usually a bad thing. This is truly difficult because we are at a place right now where social media is almost everything. If you turn on the news, half of the news is what did people say on Twitter and Facebook. Literally. Like if you just watch any cable news broadcast or even the nightly news, oh my gosh, did you hear about what a politician said on the internet on Twitter? And then another person be like, did you hear what this actor said on Facebook? Outrageous. And it's just people freaking out about what people say on social media. And yet social media is designed to make people feel detached from each other, designed to make people feel like there are no repercussions for what they say, designed to make it so they have no meaningful connections with other human beings and cannot have any real conversation that's lasting and deep and impactful. And yet we treat it like it's the most important thing ever. And it almost never is. The truth is, I don't care what some politician, some actor, whoever, me, posts on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. It doesn't matter. Does it impact my life in any actual way? Nope. If I turn off Twitter, if I just went to my web browser and put in a block right there and said, do not ever let me load a link that's from a twitter.com URL, and I never see those things again, is my life any worse? Nope. Is my life a little bit better? Yep. I did it for 30 days, and it was awesome. And yet, I'm back to using Twitter. The social media executives out there have stated flatly they know that what they are building is both bad for you and addictive like a drug. They know that. Mark Zuckerberg knows that because their company, Facebook, has done the studies on it. They know exactly what they're doing. They design everything to be as addictive as possible. That is the design. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is business. Now, we as a people have a choice. We can sit down and continue to use it and say, yes, I want to use this addictive drug that makes me less happy, less productive, and have less meaningful conversations and connections with other human beings. Or we can move away from it. Now, I say that like it's some easy thing to do, because technically it is an easy thing to do. And yet here I am, still with a friggin' Twitter account. I need to figure that out for myself. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. So let me know what you guys think about this, because it is fascinating. How do we break that chain? How do we stop this perpetual cycle of using an addictive thing that is destroying, I think, the very fabric of our society? People don't treat other people like human beings anymore. People make jokes on Twitter that are lighthearted and happy, and other people come in and be like, I hate you, you're a Nazi. It's like, oh my goodness. People just need to be nice to each other. And I don't know if people can be nice to each other in a forum like social media. That is inherently a bad idea for people. I'm not sure if it's possible. And this episode of The Lunduke Show is brought to you by Pogo Linux, who put Linux on the biggest, beefiest workstations and servers this side of the Mississippi. I love that phrase, but really they ship everywhere. So any side of the Mississippi, I suppose. Go to pogolinux.com, check out their servers, especially their storage servers. They make great compute servers. They make great 4U rack mount servers with the beefiest processors in the world, but their storage servers capture my imagination. I start to think about the ability of storing a petabyte of data in a 1U flash-based rack mount. They can do that. And I start thinking through, what can I store in a petabyte in a 1U? A 1U is, yay tall, right? Well, what if you have a whole rack of those? What if you got 15 1Us and you've got 15 petabytes of storage? I mean, you store every book ever made. Can you store every movie ever made? I don't even know. It boggles my mind. Go over to pogolinux.com and check them out. And Purism, who take laptops that have hardware kill switches on them. This is me flipping a hardware kill switch. I don't know why I do that motion. It's a hardware kill switch motion that turns off things like the wireless or the webcam. Now, it's not a cover. It's not a little whoop. It's not a little bronk. Cover it up. To cover up your private, to make your life more private. It's an actual hardware kill switch that severs the connection. How awesome is that? Plus, they run GNU Linux. Go over to Purism's website, pura.sm, for more information, and Lulzbot 3D printers. This, by the way, is the only thing, this right here, the only thing in color in this entire video. Lulzbot. Amazing 3D printers. They love free software. They love open source hardware. Go check them out at lulzbot.com. And if you would like to get more information about me, about what I do, if you'd like to get the MP3 RSS feed so you can listen to this while driving in the car or on your commute on the train or whatever, you go over to patreon.com/Brian Lunduke, support the show, or lunduke.com. And if you'd like to read the articles I write, head on over to linuxjournal.com and subscribe. This is the longest running and oldest Linux magazine on planet Earth. And I am writing over there as their deputy editor nowadays. All right. That's it for today. I'm going to go probably check Twitter. Oh, God.